One of the main storylines of 2026 seems to be that we're going to start hearing about these next generation consoles. The PlayStation 6, the Xbox Series, whatever they're going to call it. All of these consoles seem to be lying in wait for customers to kind of consume. Yet, with the RAM shortages and everything that seems to be going on with the economy, could we be seeing a massive delay in consoles? Well, that's what's being reported right now. Yesterday, a bunch of articles came out and a bunch of insiders and economists came out talking about how the consoles are looking at a massive delay, maybe even going back to 2030. Now, I know a lot of people might not like hearing that because they always look forward to the next gen hardware, but I'm here to tell you that this might actually be a good thing for the industry and a good thing for developers who seem to still be getting more out of these current gen hardware. So let's get into what's being reported and what's going on because we have all the details here and there's a lot to cover. So let's do this. All right, so you know the drill. If you like the content, hit that subscribe button and that like button to support us about the channel more than you know. I'm always on here talking about the latest gaming news and trying to keep everybody informed and putting my little spin on it. So I just want to jump into this article because there is a lot to cover here. I have it pulled up here, so let's just jump into exactly what it's talking about because, man, I want to see where these next-gen consoles are coming from. With the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S generation having entered its 6th year, many are expecting to get the first glimpse of the next generation of consoles soon, in light of the expected 2027-2028 release window for both systems. However, we are living in a very challenging times for console manufacturers who must deal with the current economic situation and soaring RAM prices as they prepare the PlayStation 6 and the next generation Xbox. Although neither Sony nor Microsoft has openly addressed the situation, which is expected to remain challenging for a few years at best, it is very likely to impact their next generation plans significantly. So much so that a known analyst is expecting the PlayStation 6 to be delayed from the expected 2027-2028 release window. In a new report posted on Sandstone Insights in Japanese, respected senior research analyst and MST Financial David Gibson shared some predictions on Sony's third quarter of the current fiscal year. While the report looks at Sony's entire operation, including the television and music business, the observations on the company's gaming division are the most interesting. For the third quarter, Sony's results are expected to beat market expectations, driven by sales on both in-house and third-party games. These results will likely make it easier for Sony to extend the current console generation, as Sony expects the PlayStation 5's lifecycle to be extended, with the PlayStation 6 likely to be delayed longer than many expected. Okay, so we know that Sony's doing just fine when it comes to making money on the PlayStation side. Although the hardware sales went down a little bit this last year, the hardware sales were down across the board since like the 90s. It was a horrible holiday season for hardware. We all know that. We expected that. And honestly, the prices and the price hikes showed that. Gamers aren't going to buy stuff when it's that high. But it's something that the companies felt like they had to do with everything going on. Now, I don't want to really touch on that because I think there's ways they can mitigate that because they make so much money and they keep talking about that they had the best year they've ever had and they're the most profitable they ever had. But hey, let's not go down that path. I want to talk about how big of a delay this is going to be because from what we're looking at, this is looking like it might even go into 2030 for next-gen consoles, which would make the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X console generation one of the longest, if not the longest console generation we've ever seen. Let's get into what the article keeps talking about because I will show you why a little bit later, why I think personally it actually is a good thing that this might be happening. While the delay of the next console generation isn't something we are hearing this month for the first time, the prediction coming from an expert analyst definitely gives more weight to the prospect. However, a longer delay into 2029 in 2030 or even beyond would make the scenario very peculiar for the console industry, as Sony and possibly Microsoft would be sitting on hardware that will be outdated by 2030. This wouldn't be completely unprecedented, given that the Nintendo Switch 2 successfully launched in 2025, later than even Nvidia expected and without cutting-edge technology, but it would still be new for both Sony and Microsoft. In under current conditions, it will likely be preferable to delay new systems rather than release them at a very high price that wouldn't make them compelling to the price-savvy console audience. Okay, number one, they brought up Nintendo, which I feel like Nintendo's kind of in its own realm when it comes to exclusives and attach rates and its fan base. They make games that are exclusive to the Nintendo Switch, and that's it. And it's honestly becoming one of the best-selling hardwares we've ever seen, which this article up here brings up. It says Nintendo Switch 2 sold 4.4 million units in the US in 2025, remains the fastest-selling console in US history. As reported by Matt Piscatella of US market research company Circana, Switch 2 was the best-selling hardware in terms of both unit sales and dollar sales in December 2025 and across the entire year. This means it remains the fastest-selling video game hardware platform in tracked history. Piscatella notes points out that no other console had reached 4.4 million sales in the US in its first 7 months. Not bad, Nintendo. Good job. But I will say this. The Switch console, the first one, the first generation Switch, was a very long console. It felt very long in the tooth. A lot of people wanted better hardware on it, but I'm going to say why this was actually a good thing for them. Because they were able to put their developers on it and optimize their games a lot better, so when the Switch 2 came out, they were able to get more out of that hardware, and that's why you're getting better games on the Switch 2 that perform better. That's something that I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to. Because if you remember at the first time the consoles launched, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, a lot of games came out very unoptimized. They were coming out at 30, they were looking like mud, honestly. It wasn't looking great. Very few games were actually utilizing the tools within the hardware to make things look better, and on top of it, give better performance. So console gamers were really annoyed with not only the performance, but how the games looked on that hardware. So I think right now with this delay, it gives Microsoft and Sony a little bit of time, a little bit of something to maybe get a little bit more out of the current gen hardware that they can build off of into the next generation hardware. Because this RAM issue that's going on is not going anywhere. And this isn't just going to affect consoles. This is going to affect PC gamers because the prices to make a PC are astronomical right now. I mean, we're at the point where Nvidia is selling you older hardware because it's cheaper to do that because of this RAM shortage. So what do you think is going to happen to all the other hardware surrounding RAM? The consoles are going to be affected. And I was one of the firm believers that when the consoles launched, these current gen consoles, that the next gen consoles wouldn't come out till about 2028. That was what I said for years. And I stuck by that because I always felt that we can let this console generation go a little bit longer to help developers understand the hardware and the software associated with that hardware. That is what I want to see. And we can say whatever we want to say about the hardware and how it wasn't that great or anything like that, but it's powerful enough where we can move forward with it. And that's something that PlayStation did with the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is brought up here in a tweet talking about the attach rate in the sales numbers of these consoles. Some 2025 US video game sales fun facts. 49% of PS5 and 66% of Xbox Series hardware sales in 2025 did not include a physical media drive. 13% of PS5 purchases in 2025 were of Pro models. PlayStation Portal now has a 7% attach rate to PS5 hardware LTD. So as you can see here, it does feel like some people are kind of jumping ship to that PS5 Pro, which gives them a little bit more performance, which, hey, that's great. If that's what you want, there's an option for you there. And honestly, if you want a little bit more performance, you can also get an Xbox Series X. Now, personally, I know I'm a PC guy and I love my PC, but I also do enjoy jumping on my consoles every now and then to play some games if I don't want to sit in front of my desk all day. I like jumping on the couch and just playing a game without really worrying about anything. So when I hear about these people jumping to the Pro, that's the number I'm thinking of the people that would buy the next gen consoles at the price it would have to come out in the next year or two. AKA the hardware enthusiasts, the hardcore. Because let's be real, a lot of people aren't buying new consoles, they're not buying new things because a lot of the free-to-play games still work on the Xbox One and the PS4. So the attach rate isn't as demanding because the games being played aren't requiring you to buy new hardware. That's why I think that this might actually be a good delay for not only the hardware manufacturers, but the companies and developers to kind of get their arms around what they want this next-gen console to be. Stop chasing trends, stop chasing technology, make sure that you're chasing optimization and making your hardware better for your customers who are buying it. That's what I want. I understand that technology in the tech world is a rat race. You got to keep moving, you got to keep moving forward, you got to keep pushing, and that's what happens. But sometimes it's good to take a step back like Nintendo did, optimize your current hardware, and maybe you'll get better performance in the next gen. That's what I want to see from these people. And I kind of want to close out the article just to kind of wrap everything up because there was a lot in here. And let's see what it says at the end. If the PlayStation 5 generation is extended beyond expectations and with no change to the current situation, the outlook is dire for gamers. The only things that are evolving constantly are the prices. They go up and up and up, said Ashen Wander on the Reset Era forums, echoing a good portion of the PlayStation community sentiment torn between wanting to get their hands on the PlayStation 6 and the rumored handheld, and having to pay the exorbitant price Sony would have to release it for with a launch within the next 2 to 3 years. So the first thing I will say is I actually think mentioning the handhelds is a big thing because there's a lot of things coming down the pipe. We have seen the Steam Deck, which I own one. It's right here. I love my Steam Deck. I enjoy playing it when I'm playing somewhat of smaller indies. It's a lot of fun and I enjoy it because it's more relaxing. It's a little bit more casual. And that's going to happen even more. I mean, we just saw Xbox bring out a brand new piece of hardware last year that was $1,000 for a handheld that people enjoyed, but it was for a very niche market. There just seems to be a lot of options out there. And I think the PlayStation 6 delaying where they're coming out is the smarter move because I don't think a lot of people are going to be buying $1,000 consoles. I mean, the big thing that's coming out right now in the next few months is the Steam machine. And everybody keeps talking about it because they feel like it's going to give a little bit of a disruption to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles. Yet we all talk about one thing, the price of the Steam machine. That's all people talk about is how much is this thing going to be? How much are we going to be having to waste on this thing? And when can I get my hands on it to check it out? But the one thing that people don't understand is that Valve, when they brought out the Steam Deck, didn't make it this almighty and powerful handheld. They made it very optimized. They put a lot of time into it, and they put very small increments of upgrades into it when they brought out the OLED version because they're taking a slow approach like Nintendo because they just want the console to run well and play games well first. Make sure the customer understands what it is and put games on it that they can play on there. Now, the Steam machine, I think it's going to be the same thing. I think they said they're targeting 4K 60, but with certain software helping it. Totally fine. 4K 60 with software helping it and bringing upscales on it, that's going to be just fine for that console because people will enjoy it and it gets Steam into the living room. As for these console delays, I think they need to take that same approach that Steam is. Make sure that you're bringing out hardware that isn't going to kill your price because the number one thing that consoles have going for them is that barrier of entry in the price. People were able to buy an Xbox Series S 2-3 years ago for like $150 to $250. And now it's $500 to get one or $450. And the Xbox Series consoles are astronomical on top of it. And you look at PlayStation, they brought up the prices also, but they also put on sale in the holidays for the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro so people can buy them during the holidays. So all in all, I think that these consoles are going to get delayed. I think that over time, you're going to start seeing a lot of the Microsoft and Sony, the PlayStation, all those people that are making these next-gen consoles, they're going to take a step back, reevaluate what's happening, and make sure that the consoles they bring out are a fair price to the consumer. Do I think Microsoft is able to do that? I'm not sure because it doesn't seem like they're selling anything at a loss anymore. They want to make their money back on everything they sell. So do I think that Microsoft is able to do that? We'll find out. Maybe to get some of the retention of their consoles. I think that the next Xbox console is going to sell around 15 to 20 mil, if that. I think that the PlayStation executives understand that one of their big things is price and their exclusives, and not to mention their performance that they have on those games. Because Sony, while the PS4 came out, really optimized their console very well, and the developers really optimized it well. And then that carried over to the PlayStation 5 when you saw God of War Ragnarok run at 80 frames or whatever it was. And of course, Spider-Man 2 and all their games run fairly well on PS5 hardware. And then the PS5 Pro took it to another level. So I think they understand that they can't put this massive hardware in there that's going to be super expensive. They need to make sure that people that buy their consoles are for console gamers, the people that don't want to spend $2,000 to $3,000 or now $7,000 on a PC. They want to make sure that those customers that they're targeting are the people that play console games. They want to get in there at that low barrier of entry for a few $100s, maybe $500-$600, and then buy games and play them, and that's it. That's all they want from their console. They don't need it to be the price of a PC or a laptop at $1,000 or a tablet or an iPad or whatever you want to call it, because that's just too high of an asking price for console gamers, in my humble opinion. So all in all, I think this is actually pretty cool. I think that we're going to see a lot more news come out. And I think that the next couple of events or next couple of months are going to really show what console manufacturers and what publishers like Microsoft and Sony are going to do with their next gen hardware. If we don't hear anything this year, man, you better believe that 2030 date might be real, because I think they're going to kind of regroup this year, make sure that they understand what the impact on their fiscal years are going to be, make sure they understand what it's going to be, the impact of the economy and what this RAM's doing to them. All of this stuff is going to come full circle in the next year. So I think we need to stay tuned. Do I think that Xbox particularly is going to bring out a handheld or something different, that they're going to partner with another manufacturer like Asus? Probably, but I just don't know what's going to happen with these next gen consoles. I don't think anybody does. And all this reporting coming in is very well done. I mean, these people are kind of had their ear to the ground of what's happening in the companies and what's happening around the industry. So I think we need to pay attention, because where there's smoke, there's fire, especially when it comes to next gen consoles. Now I'm gonna close it out with this. Here's what Matt Piscatella had to say about what's going on in the gaming industry in 2025. Here's the thread of December's 2025 US video game market results from Circana. Total spending finished the year plus 1% ahead of 2024. Nintendo Switch 2 was the year's best-selling hardware, while Battlefield 6 took the top spot in software. All in all, 1% jump from the year before. So you can see that the spending money trend in video games has gone down because the economy is so volatile. So we have to listen to what gamers are doing. They're obviously not buying things because you keep jacking up prices. And I think a delay of the consoles, living on these consoles, which perform pretty well so far if you keep optimizing them the correct way, can last a little bit longer. So for gamers, I understand that people want new hardware in their hand and they want to feel it and they want to play on the new console. I think those times, the big jump from the 360 to the Xbox One or the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4 jump, that technology is not going to be as big as you think. Now, do I think that they can optimize this better and we get better frame rates? Of course. But that's going to be on the software side that needs to do that. So let's hope developers take the time needed to do that. And with these delays, they're going to be given the time needed. So let's hope that happens. But like always, I want to know what you think about this. Go in the comment section. Do you think we have a little bit more time or a couple more years with these current gen consoles we have? Or do you want to see some new consoles coming out so you can jump into new hardware, because that's what you are. You're a hardware enthusiast. As we've seen right now during this whole thing with the PlayStation 5 Pro selling about 13% of what the PlayStation 5 is selling, it seems like there is a market for it, but is it big enough to sustain a next generation with the price that it would be? Go down below and let me know. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and that subscribe button. It helps out the channel more than you know. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games, trying to share everything out there that I see. And I'm not the best social media guy, but hey, we're going to keep trying. And also go down below and let me know what you've been playing. I always want to talk about games. I know we talk about the news and the hardware, but I always like kind of bringing it back down to reality and seeing what games people are playing every day. So today I've been playing a lot of Avatar, the Frontier game, really liking the third person mode, and the game is gorgeous. Man, that world's beautiful. I really recommend you guys check it out. Maybe on a sale. It's not the best game, but I'm enjoying it for what it is. So go down below, let me know what you're playing, because that's what I always like to talk about, is the games. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and like always, enjoy your gaming. Later.